Okay, hello everybody. I think we'll make a start. Welcome to today's webinar, which is all about using AI to scale your global e-learning. It is my hope and intention for today's session that you all walk away with some practical advice on how to localize your learning content with the help of AI. Before we get started, I'll just kick off with some introductions for anybody who doesn't know me or haven't met before. My name is Emily, and I'm General Manager and Head of Client Partnerships here at Comtech Translations. And we are a translation partner based in the Midlands here in the UK. We've been going for just over 40 years, and we have a team of over 5,000 linguists who can help us and support us in the delivery of localization across all areas, including learning and development in over 250 different languages. I have 9 years of experience in localization, and 8 of those are in learning and development. And I help look after our learning and development localization team here at Comtech, where we will support both learning agencies and learning partners, as well as in-house learning and development teams at multinational organizations such as those that I've mentioned on screen for you there. In my spare time, I'm a director on the board of the Learning Network, which is a UK-based community aimed at supporting professionals who work in learning and development. So hopefully that explains a little bit about why I am the one who's here to talk to you about this today. So, what is it that we're going to be talking about today? Some of the things that we'll cover, just a bit of a heads up, and hopefully what you've signed up for today. We're going to be looking at how the learning and development localization landscape has really changed and what this means in terms of the challenges that it presents to people working in learning and development. We're also going to be looking at content categorization. So, what is it? Why do you do it? And why does it answer some of those challenges that I've just mentioned there? And also, we'll be looking at how humans can still add significant value to the localization process, even when you're using AI, and what that looks like as a process as well, something that we call human in the loop. So that's quite a lot to whiz through in the next 30 minutes to go. So I think we'll get started. I don't need to tell you that the world of learning and development looks completely different to how it did pre-pandemic. And actually, the advent of AI has a huge part to play in that. Content categorization, content creation is increasing. More data has been created in the last 3 years than in the whole of human history, which is just insane if you think about it. But actually, the demand for localization as a result of this is growing. It's not shrinking, despite what some people may think. What is shrinking is people's budget and the time that they have to dedicate to things like localization, which can often feel like a bit of a luxury. But actually, AI has a non negotiable role in helping us navigate that. It's no longer a case of whether we should use AI, but it's actually where you use it, how you use it, and how comfortable you are with the risks that are involved there. And also, some of the things that we'll talk about in today's session is how to mitigate those risks when you come across them. The big thing, which I'm sure you already know about AI, is that it has allowed us to do a lot of things very quickly and very cheaply, including localization. And this can be really amazing. I'm not disputing that by any means. But I think we all know now that it can be a little bit too good to be true in some cases. So, whereas speed and cost savings can really be appealing, they can draw you in. Learning content often isn't just information or text on a screen. It can be designed to impact the people who are taking the courses, who are engaging with the material. It can be designed to impart knowledge, influence behavior, change emotion, and that kind of thing. It's often crafted with a very specific purpose in mind. And poor localization can really sort of take away the impact of that. So good translation should actually be easy to understand first time round. Nobody's got time to do a 20 or 30-minute module multiple times. It should also feel very natural and culturally appropriate and really kind of not create any friction between the content and the learner. And also, it should support whatever your learning objective should be, whether that is behavior change or knowledge retention. It should be part of that overall strategy and not detracting from it. But often, if you go down the fast and cheap route, localization can really fall short of those things. And actually, what you end up with instead is additional expense, additional time added onto your project schedule that's needed to fix the issues that have cropped up as a result of poor localization. Um, you often then will see lower learner engagement and weaker knowledge retention as a result of that. And actually, everybody just ends up feeling a little bit frustrated by the whole process. And that can cause stress, it can cause bad relationships, and it can reflect badly on your learning and development team as well. So, what is it that we can do about this problem? If we take a step back for a second and actually just think about the content that you're looking to get localized, some of it will serve a higher purpose than others, and it can be more valuable to your company or your client. But that value will actually look different to different teams, and it can depend on a number of different factors, such as your audience size, for example. Is it a large audience that's going to be seeing the localized content? Is it a particularly strategic audience, or is it quite a minor one? That can have an impact on the approach that you take to localization. Where does it kind of fit into your overall strategy? Is it part of a wider objective and a wider strategy, or is it just a tick box exercise? And finally, what is the risk of it going wrong? What could happen if people don't engage with the content or they don't understand the information that you're trying to pass on? Are those consequences financial, legal? Are they cultural? And kind of how important are those consequences to you? That will all kind of help you decide on the road that you want to take to getting your content localized. And actually, the advice that we give is to match that effort and match that risk to the approach that you take. That will help you avoid overspending in areas that actually just won't give you that return on investment. And it will help you avoid underinvesting in the areas where actually you should be dedicating your time, your energy, and your funds. Our role as a translation partner is increasingly becoming less about doing the actual translation work and more helping our clients decide where to allocate those resources and what kind of approach that needs to be taken depending on the content that needs to be localized. So, the challenge, as I mentioned earlier, isn't really whether to use AI, but actually how much automation, what level of automation, and what level of human review is appropriate for each type of learning content. So let's look at an example. This is a fictional client, and they've decided on three different translation approaches and three different types, different levels of automation and human review, depending on the content that we're looking at. At the very bottom here, they've got some pretty basic content, some customer service copy, and some FAQs. And they have decided that for this particular batch of content, an automated translation approach is sufficient here. If we move up a level, they've got some different modules that actually need a little bit more of that human touch. They're more learner facing, they contribute a little bit more to their overall brand strategy. So they're combining AI with human review there. And finally, at the very top, they've got very strategically important content. In this case, it's their DE&I training. And for this reason, they're not taking any risk at all. They're going down a fully human only route with no AI or automation there. So that's just an illustration of how you might want to split out your content and map the translation approach accordingly. But how do you choose the right level of automation? And also, what do those different options look like? We can roughly break down the options into four different solutions, although I think it's actually really important to say that they exist on more of a continuum. They really range from fully automated to sort of a fully human, no automation solution there. So if we start on the left-hand side here, we have a fully automated, pretty vanilla machine translation AI translation solution, which is best for low risk, high volume content where speed and budget really are the priority here. They take precedence over everything else. As we move along to the right hand side, we can see more human involvement with customizing AI outputs with glossaries and style guides, for example, to reviewing the machine translation output to actually doing it completely from scratch. So if we look at the second option along, for example, it's kind of the same as just the vanilla machine translation that I mentioned on the left-hand side, but humans are involved here in kind of influencing and tailoring the output that we see here. They're not really touching it once it's gone through the AI engine, but what they are doing is just setting it up so that we see a higher quality output before it gets published. Then if we move across again to machine translation with human review, it kind of does what it says on the tin. It's the same process as we see in that second option, but we've assigned a human linguist to refine that, and they are looking at things like accuracy, fluency, they'll check things like terminology, but they'll also add a certain level of polish and cultural relevance in there as well. And that's a good fit for where, yes, we still need to keep an eye on speed. We need to check that we're fitting within the budget, but there's also an element there that quality and brand alignment are important as well. And then finally, if we look at the far right option there, that fully human from scratch, that's really reserved, especially these days, for anything that's particularly complex. And that complexity can be in terms of content, in terms of language and language combinations, or in style. So if we think about complex languages, that can be languages like Arabic and Hebrew, for example, or we could also think about it in terms of style. If we have a particularly deliberate house style that we want to see reflected in the content, and that might not necessarily be possible with an AI engine. Also, if we have, as we often do in learning content multimedia assets, that level of complexity to kind of sneak in a little bit earlier than if it's just a plain text asset. Often we will see video content having the highest levels of engagement. So if the localization is poor, this can really complicate and deteriorate the learner experience. We're often working with more restrictions when it comes to video and audio content, such as video timings and synchronization factors, character restrictions, and AI might struggle to combine this with the translation stage as well. So that's where human review can kind of add a little bit more assurance and quality there. And multimedia is often where projects can exceed allocated budgets. They might take a little bit more time. And actually, as a result of that, teams might decide to reduce the overall language coverage, which can have an impact on the overall learner experience. So getting this right, getting the localization approach right, especially when we're using multimedia here, is crucial, but it's not impossible. It's just where you might require an additional level of human review. So where else can human review really add value here? I'm not going to go through this entire table right now. What I will do is I'll send across the slides after today's session so you can read this in a little bit more detail. But I will just call out a few things here which I think are particularly relevant. The first of these being style. I think style is a real key area when it comes to localization, especially when you're using AI. Often even when a translation is grammatically accurate, it might reflect the English source perfectly, it might use the right terminology, but you might see feedback like this sounds like Google Translate. Often what that means is it doesn't align to my particular style preferences. It doesn't sound like it's something that I wrote. And that is something that I think AI can still really struggle with, is align perfectly with those expectations and those preferences around style and fluency. So that's where a human can really add value. They can make those additional changes. They can add that style, that polish and that nuance to bring it more in line with the expectations around style and consistency. as well. Another thing that I think is particularly relevant for learning and development content is context. And I think that's something that AI can still struggle with quite a lot, especially in L&D content. You will see kind of isolated strings like button labels, for example, or single word flip cards or things like the homepage. Those in isolation can be misunderstood. They're quite ambiguous terms. So I think where humans can add value is kind of checking that everything makes sense in context in situ, and just making sure that we've got the correct translation there to avoid any misunderstanding and any ambiguity. And finally, another crucial area here, which I'm just going to call out, is around the language combination that you're using. I touched on that on an earlier slide, but I think it's important just to mention again here that the language combination that you're working with will have an impact on whether human review is necessary or not. You've got a lot of languages like French, German, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, where there's a lot of content out there that's been able to train the machine translation engines. You also have languages that are a lot more linguistically simple. So the AI is able to make that leap and generate an output that is workable. A linguist can work with it, or it can, in a lot of cases, be used by itself as the technology continues to develop. If you compare that to languages like Arabic, Hebrew, Thai that are more linguistically complex, there's less content out there that has been used to train the engines. That will generate a lower quality output. And in a lot of cases, it's not good enough to be used, even for kind of a linguist to review and edit that. They have to work from scratch. That's the kind of current status of things. Obviously, things are changing and evolving all the time. But that is a definite area to consider when you're looking at how much human review to include in your project lifecycle. And I think there are three real crucial steps as to where a human review can be included and what we call human in the loop. And that's before the AI is used, after that AI has been applied, and also on an ongoing basis as well. So before AI is used, our linguists and our team are helping us to build the resources that are necessary to steer that AI and guarantee a certain quality of output there. They're helping us build glossaries, style guides, and they're helping to provide that advice on which is the right approach, depending on the content and depending on the risks that are involved. After that AI has been generated, they're then completing a review, they're completing a post edit where necessary and where that's needed. And during that process, they are fixing mistranslations, they are correcting any cultural issues, and they're also applying additional accuracy and fluency as well. And on an ongoing basis, that human in the loop process looks like continuously testing the process. They're refining the approach, they're refining the rules that kind of go into that AI setup. They are evolving the service. They are looking at ways that we can continue to use the tech. And also that's influencing the advice that we give to clients as things change, as the industry develops, as contents and markets continue to evolve as well. So that human in the loop is very much a continuous process. And obviously that's how AI can become part of your localization toolkit as well, and not just a one-off click and go solution. So finally, I wanted to leave you with some takeaways from today's session, but rather than give you those in kind of bullet point form, I wanted to give them to you in the form of questions that you can take back to your team, not just your internal teams and your colleagues, but also questions that might be useful when you're trying to explain or justify your localization approach to procurement or your senior leadership team, for example. So have a think about where poor localization might cause issues for you, where it might impact understanding, where it could have a negative impact on the learner experience. Have a think about which content can be safely automated without it kind of detracting from that, and where might benefit from a greater level of human input. Think about the decision-making process that goes into choosing your localization approach. is it just based on speed? Is it based on budget? And in a lot of cases, it might be, and that's totally okay. That will impact the road that you go down when it comes to choosing your localization approach. But it often comes with risks and things that you just need to consider before you kind of look into that. It might be based on learner impact, and it just might be a case of then opening yourself up to different ways that AI can be used in the process and where you can use more human review, whether that's expert linguists or actually your internal teams as well. And finally, think about where investing more time up front in setting up the process could actually save you a lot of headaches down the line. It can reduce the amount of extra expense and extra work that goes into fixing mistakes and issues further down the line. It can alleviate a lot of those frustrations and concerns that happen amongst teams when things go wrong. And it can obviously save you from any additional cost that kind of gets brought on later in the process. So, those are just some things to think about as you leave today's session. So I hope that you enjoyed the session today. And before you go, I wanted to just share with you a few exclusive offers. If you drop me an email to the email that's on screen for you there are a number of freebies that you can take away from today's session. First of all, there is a PDF, which is our full guide on how to use AI to turbocharge your learning and development translations. That will cover a lot of the things that we talked about today, but also go into a lot more detail around things like video localization, for example. And secondly, I can also offer you a free machine translation automated sample of your content in any of the languages that you needed to. And that will hopefully give you just a little taste of what AI can do when it's harnessed in the right way to localize your content. And obviously, anybody who hasn't been able to make the session today, you're more than welcome to pass this offer along to your friends and colleagues as well. So that is it for me today. But before we wrap up today's session, does anybody have any questions? I'll just open the chat at this stage to see if there's any questions that I can answer from today. Nobody popping up quite yet. If there's anything that anybody wants to talk about after today's session, you can see in the right hand corner there my email address. So please feel free to just drop me a separate note if you'd prefer, if that's easier, to kind of discuss any questions that you might have offline. Hopefully, the fact that nobody's got any questions is a good sign. It means that I've answered everything. So in that case, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And I look forward to hearing from you with any questions that you might have after the session. Thank you very much. Bye.